our beautiful and bizarre planet. The strangest place in the entire universe might just be right here. In fact, if you knew half of what it takes to just simply breathe, it might just take your breath away. It begins in a salty desert in Africa. And no, it's not the salt that helps us breathe, it's the soil itself. Sandstorms can sweep up huge amounts of desert dust and send it across the ocean. It flies into the Amazon basin, and it turns out it happens to be a great fertilizer. One tree can actually support 2 people, and the Amazon rainforest is 10 times the size of Texas. But not a single breath of that oxygen leaves the Amazon. There are just so many animals and insects there that they end up consuming it all. The Amazon rainforest does help us breathe, however, but it's through its river in the sky. As trees suck up water and it reaches the top of it, the combination of sun and wind end up evaporating the moisture and it turns into clouds. If this river was a normal river, it would be the largest one in the world. These clouds flow over South America until they end up hitting the Andes Mountains, where they condense and fall as rain. And as they go along their path, they end up eroding the rock and dragging sediment along with them. They flow into rivers, and then these rivers end up flowing into the ocean. Now in the ocean there's a little creature called a diatom that is waiting for this sediment. It's 4 times thinner than a human hair, and it uses the silicon from the sediment to create new shells. And as they create new shells, they reproduce and they begin to synthesize, and then they begin to create oxygen. These little guys are the key to Earth's oxygen supply. And as they bloom, you can actually see it from space. The changing color is the diatom. And when they die, their corpses float down to the bottom of the ocean, where they blanket the floor a half mile thick. It's actually called marine snow. But unlike snow, it never goes away. Over millions of years, the seabeds rise, the ocean falls, and the ocean floor becomes a salty desert. Yes, the dust that falls in the Amazon rainforest is in fact old diatom shells. The Earth is an amazing thing, and it always comes for a full circle. Our world has been born out of violence. It has been beaten, it has been battered, and it has been bruised. But every one of these incidences was actually fortunate in the end. We have all heard of the story of how the dinosaurs became extinct, but you might not know the whole story. There's something special about where the impact happened. The asteroid actually hit a huge sulfur reserve. When the impact happened, it caused the sulfur to vaporize into the atmosphere and ended up blocking out the sun, causing a small ice age, and then the dinosaurs died. So the Earth spins, right? And the asteroid traveled through space for perhaps billions of years. And when it hit us, it actually hit us in the worst possible place. So if it would have arrived just a few seconds later, it actually would have hit the deep ocean, causing no mass extinction. And perhaps life as we know it today would not have been possible. One of Earth's most dangerous moments was when it collided with Theia. The dominant theory is that Earth had a twin in the Goldilocks zone, named Theia, on a collision course with Earth. When they eventually collided, crust from both Theia and Earth shot out into space and eventually was captured by Earth's gravity. Soon, this cluster of molten rock and metal began to orbit, began to cool and condense, and eventually formed our moon. 2 additional things happened from this collision. When we were smashed hard, it actually ended up sending us spinning. A day back then when this happened was roughly 5 hours. But because of the constant tug and pull between Earth and the moon, it began to slow down our rate of rotation, and it essentially gave us our 24-hour day. This day is embedded into our DNA. We wake up, we make breakfast, we go to work, we come home, we make dinner, we go to bed, we wake up, and do it all over again, day in and day out. The rhythms of life. Another benefit that came from this massive collision was it knocked us on our side. It gave us our 23.5-degree tilt. If this tilt wouldn't have happened, a large portion of the Earth would be uninhabitable. Only a stretch along the equator would be warm enough and consistent enough for life to live on the surface. We oftentimes think of the sun as a jolly ball of nice, wishing us a good day. But in reality, it's just a planet killer. The sun has many weapons at its disposal. One big weapon is its solar radiation, but Earth is heavy on defense. This is a picture of lava. Now, how does lava protect us from solar radiation? It is direct proof that at the heart of this planet, there is a nuclear furnace blazing away. In Earth's core, metals like nickel and iron rise and fall, spin and turn, and all of this turning creates Earth's electromagnetic field. It's our very own force field. You can actually see Earth's force field at work when you view the auroras, but when you see them from space, it takes on a whole new meaning. But the sun has yet another weapon, UV light. But Earth has yet another shield. Our ozone layer is our second shield from the sun. But the fact that it is here in the first place is an amazing story in and of itself. Life without it would be stuck below the waves. Billions of years ago, microorganisms started using the sun's energy. They then started producing a waste material, oxygen. First it was just a few, then it was thousands, then it was millions. And soon enough, oxygen was bubbling to the top of the ocean and floating into our atmosphere. When oxygen floats to the outermost part of our atmosphere, something amazing happens. It converts to ozone. First microbes, then plants, began to make their way safely onto land, thus releasing even more oxygen into the atmosphere. Soon after, with the thickest ozone layer than ever before, vertebrates started taking their very first steps on the land. This was one small step for animal kind and one giant leap for life on Earth. The sun has one final weapon, and it might be the one that gets us in the end. Plain old heat. Surprisingly, Venus has the hottest surface of any planet in our solar system, even though it is not the closest planet to the sun. The reason? Carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. Volcanoes have been around for billions of years on this planet. Most of the smoke you see here is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide warms the planet through a greenhouse effect, slowing the rate at which heat can leave our planet. It is essentially a blanket of CO2. So if volcanoes have been around for billions of years spewing out CO2, how are we and why are we cooler than Venus? The answer? Earth has its own air conditioning system. Rain. We oftentimes think of rain as an ultra-clean water source, but it isn't. Within it is dissolved CO2. This dissolved CO2 in the water makes it acidic and ends up eroding rock along its way. It eventually carries the CO2 and sediment into rivers, and these rivers flow into the ocean. This is how our planet cools itself, by reducing the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. So the next time you look out in the stars to find inspiration, just remember all the little things that had to happen to make our planet a blue planet. All the catastrophes, close calls, punches, bruises, and mishaps. It's an amazing place, and we need to take care of it.